Hi, I'm John Bioron. I'm a visual artist and in the Eight Visions show at the Attleboro Art Museum. First, I'd like to thank the Attleboro Art Museum for having this show. It's really wonderful every year, and all the other artists in this show are really great. So, yeah, you should come and see the work. So, I've been an artist for years and years, pretty much since I was about five. I've worked in all sorts of mediums. I started out as a painter and went to art school and then discovered photolithography and did photography, lithography, graduated, and then continued to make art and show art uh, for quite a while. I had about a 12-year hiatus with my daughter, raising my daughter, and then have been showing ever since. And I've gone through a series of two-dimensional workings where I would take photographs, manipulate them, transfer them to paper, and then work into the pieces with gouache, pencil, any whatever mediums necessary. Um, and I did that for quite some time, and I still do that. And then I started doing three-dimensional works, which I had never really done before, aside from a couple of installations when I was younger. I did a series of mobiles, and then just recently, say just before COVID, actually, I was going through some old negatives, and I found this photograph, which I took when I was about 9 years old with a Kodak Instamatic camera. It's my dad when he would come home from school every day. He was a teacher, and he would read the paper in his recliner, usually in a t-shirt, watching the news while my mom cooked in the kitchen. And so for me, this was sort of a really good metaphor for my personal upbringing and memories, and also just sort of a social metaphor for suburban white life, if you will. Anyway, so I took this photograph and I didn't. I thought, well, why don't I make the TV that's out of the frame? So I started constructing a three-dimensional TV, and I used cardboard and some mulberry paper for a screen, and then I made it into a actual box that I could hang on the wall, and I put a flat screen television inside and started doing video work for it. Uh, and I finished that, and then um, COVID hit, and so I kept working with that idea, and I started to investigate other three-dimensional things. I started working on this iron, and then my mother passed away. And so what I thought was I sort of migrated into wanting to recreate the living room, this living room of my childhood. So I started creating objects, including that went with the television theme of an exaggerated perspective and an all white color. So it would give it a dreamlike sort of feel and memory feel of memory. So this was the next object, and it is made out of this is cardboard, and then I constructed this out of cardboard and paper mache, and this is all foam clay, and it's got a little metal on it, and this is one of the only colors in the whole installation. There's red, there's a little yellow on the TV. So this was really fun, and then I put it on rebar. So the car, it's sort of supposed to be sort of like a snake coming up into the air, and the rebar curls around and comes back up, and it has the plug on the end. So I did that for a few other pieces in the installation as well. So I basically spent 2 to 3 years during COVID in my garage. I put up plywood, painted it white to set up a staging area, and I spent the whole of COVID constructing a large lazy boy chair, um, a vacuum cleaner coming off the wall, and several other objects. And this whole installation will be in the show. And the nice thing is, this space is really large and it will accommodate it. It's not the easiest thing to get in galleries. Um, so anyway, yeah, that's my story, and I hope you come to the opening. And thank you very much.
My name is Peter Campbell. I'm honored to be having been selected for the Eight Vision Show here at the Attleboro Museum. I thought I'd talk a little bit about the new series of paintings that I have been working on. Those particular paintings deal with the toys we play with. Some of them can be whimsical, some of them can be disturbing. A few years back, I was doing some babysitting for my grandchildren, and I dragged out a bucket of the Playmobiles that my sons had played with when they were small. And we set up the scenes, the castle with the knights, and the Fort Apache with the Indians and the cavalry and the cowboys. And as we were playing with them, I looked at one of the Playmobil figures, and they're well made. They're made in Germany, but they have these angelic round faces now with these little smiles on them. And I thought to myself, these don't really look like the toy soldiers that I played with when I was a kid back in the 50s. And I started looking at them, and I realized they really had been homogenized at this point. And it made me think about possibly maybe using some of these toys in some historical paintings like I have here in one of Bunker Hill, actually including them into the painting itself. And the whole purpose was to basically try to get to the underlying narrative that lies with these toys, and also some of the violence that some of these toys encourage. So I think that I've been fairly successful with it, and I hope that people who come to the show also are able to see what I'm trying to do with these pieces. So thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Kat DC, and I'm a pen and ink artist from actually right here in Attleboro, Mass. The piece here that I'm showing is called Severed. I actually have a collection of 42 of these ink pieces that I've done over the last 5 years. Most people find it hard to believe that most of it is done with very fine line pen. And actually, once I get beyond the sort of major outline of the piece, so the big oval here, I don't use any ruler, straight edge, anything like that. It is just me sort of taking an attempt at a freehand line, hoping it works, and if it doesn't, making the best of it. Because as you'll see, it's also mostly symmetrical. So as I said, I've been doing this for about 5 years. The origin of all of this actually began, I'm a drummer as well, so musician, actually began with my band going out playing some shows and seeing other drummers with art on the bass drum head that they were playing. And so I said, I could do something like that with probably just a Sharpie. And I started messing around with some of those, and actually 2 of them will be in the show, the 8 Vision show, so you'll see them here. But that's where all of this started. I really enjoyed the intricate details, the ability to match side by side. And then once I was on drum heads, that started to get a bit expensive. They're about $25, $30 a piece. So I switched to paper, and the rest is history. And I'm really honored to be a part of 8 Visions this year. I believe it's my 3rd attempt applying, and so really pleased to be here. And yeah, just excited to share this with the rest of Attleboro and the wider community, and thanks so much.
Hi, my name is Memi Shalom, and I'm a sculptor from Newton, Massachusetts. My creative process usually starts with an idea, with a thought that can be inspired by emotion or shape that I see while taking a walk, or from deep emotions from a personal or collective dramatic events. When I have this idea, I start a process that can take days or weeks, where I contemplate in my head how to express this idea, how to transform it to a sculpture. When going through this process, I also start to consider which medium to use for that sculpture. I use multiple mediums. The most common are clay, which I then cast in resin or in bronze. I carve in stone, and I use wood. When considering the material for the sculpture, I look into ways that the material can add a dimension to my sculpture and extend the expression I want to present. As an example, in this piece here, a tear for October 7, which expresses the grief for the events and victims of the October 7 massacre, I decided to use a marble stone to represent a tear. The contrast between the softness of a small tear to the hard and cold stone, and the hint that a marble stone can remind us of a gravestone, enforces the expression of grief. Another example in this show is my series Father and Son, which I created following the passing of my father. After the death of my father, I was thinking about my relationship as a son to my father and a father to my son. And I decided to express those feelings through glimpses in the lives of a father and a son, and represent those feelings by showing hands of a child and a father, which can express their feelings and relationship. I hope you will enjoy the show.
Hi, I'm Joni Lohr. I'm a documentarian and fine art photographer from Boston. I've been taking pictures for over 50 years, and I take pictures of many different genres. And what I've chosen for this exhibit is my work on urban areas and cities in transition. That interest often takes me to grittier parts of neighborhoods where we find lots of abandoned buildings. And I love these buildings. They're beautiful. Most of them have been walked away from, left open to the elements. I usually get asked two questions about my work. And the first one is, how do you find these places? How do you get into them? There are many ways to find these places. The easiest is to take a workshop or go on a photo shoot with someone who has done the work and contacted the people who own these buildings and gotten permission so that we walk right into the building and we have access, undisturbed access for several hours in which to photograph. That's the easy part. Then there are the ones that we just jump in the car, take a drive, go on the back roads, and you never know what you're going to find. Often it's homes, factories that have been left. We go to industrial sites and find the factories that have been left. They've no longer useful, out of money, and we go in. And there's, as far as access, I've climbed over fences. I have gone through windows, climbed under barriers, and I've pushed open rusty doors, rusty gates. I always go with someone. I'm never alone. We go in teams, or at least with a couple of people, because you never know what you're going to find in these places. And you go in and there's like this, it's a little scary if you don't know what you're gonna find when you get in there. But once in, there's this, my heart starts beating very fast, and I get very taken by the awesome space. Often the space is huge if it's a factory. The lighting, there's always many broken windows so that the lighting coming in is ambient light, and it's often beautiful. And that brings me to the second question I get asked is, why do you take these photos? People are surprised because these places are decrepit. They've been vandalized. Many of them are full of graffiti. I take pictures to tell stories and to preserve memories. Those are the two main things about my photography that I've always been after. And so these buildings, in their dilapidation, they have historical and cultural and social meaning and importance. And I want to document those things. I want to tell those stories and share those stories with other people. People worked, lived, worshipped, learned, and were entertained in these buildings. These buildings had great meaning to people. So I think it's very important that we keep a record, because many of these buildings will go away. They will either be, they'll just fall into themselves and lie on the ground, or they'll be demolished and carted off, and some large condo or mall will be built over them. And so I think it's important to let people know that they were here at some time. And I like to share those stories. I take the photographs of the buildings are for me. I take them for me, but I want to share them with other people and let people know that they're here. I think these buildings are all very important. None of us are going to last forever. And so there's something to be seen from these buildings that will not last forever. Many will be repurposed, reused, and we will have memories of them. And I think the memory is most important. And so the sharing of them is important, and that's why I'm really happy to have been chosen for this exhibit, and so that I can share more than one piece. Each of these has a story. I brought a book along that you can look at, and it's also available in the gift shop, and it tells the stories of these buildings. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Karen Reed, and I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the process and why the figures are in these pieces I'm exhibiting. So these are based on a walk I do a few times a week down an old farm road, and I started taking photos for reference to paint from. And as I went through my process, I decided that I wanted to also add an element of a figure to represent my thoughts that happened through the walk. And they're more transparent in some than others, because I wanted to have them be more of a dream and a reality, non-reality base. Whereas when I'm on the walks, it's reality, but when I'm in my head, it's typically not reality. And they're intentionally unclothed because I wanted to just show how exposed my emotions are and were during these walks. So what prompted the use of the figure is I've spent many years actually painting and drawing the figure. I went a little bit away from that and went into more abstract pieces. And then I went through a period of wanting to add the figure to these sort of abstract landscapes. But since I painted a very realistic landscape, that's when I wanted to play with a dreamlike feeling by adding these figures where they're transparent, and also the colors, how kind of vivid and bright they are in some dreamlike world. They're not quite natural colors you would see in nature. So I just wanted to merge the two, and I really feel that they have a lot of emotion that's impacting the work.
Hi, my name is Erin Spencer. I am a landscape oil painter, and I live in Rhode Island. I have been painting the landscape for, I would say, about 16 years, and I'm always so inspired by nature and getting out and painting from life. And so my work in this show that I'm putting in for the 8 Visions show is, I kind of wanted to depict the seasons of the year, but I wanted to have 8 paintings in the show. So I thought I would look up some different things about transitions in the seasons. And I looked at this idea that people have this idea of there being an 8-season year. And so I thought it would be kind of interesting to depict that in my pieces. And so this is the first piece from the show that I kind of put them in order of the seasons. And so this one is called The Dark Night of Winter. And so I wanted to show the changing of the seasons throughout the year, and I am really drawn to painting the sky. And so each of these pieces really has like a low horizon to emphasize the sky a little bit more. And so just to kind of show the changing in the light and the changing in the atmosphere and the mood of each season. So I hope that you'll be able to see that as you look at the work. I have always been drawn to painting skies in the landscape, and I always hope that people will be able to see in my work the way that the sky has a big impact on the overall composition of a painting, that it isn't really an afterthought for me. It's really often the main point of my paintings. And so I think that that kind of comes about because when I'm out in nature looking at the world, I often feel like the sky has so much impact on me looking up at it. And it's very inspiring. It's exciting to paint because it is more abstract. It allows me to, I don't know, just have more expression in my work. And so I hope that you'll be able to see that in the work that is here on display at the museum. And I'm really honored to be able to have my work here. And yeah, I just hope that you'll be able to enjoy that. And thanks.
Hello, my name's James Varnum. I'm one of the artists in the 8 Visions exhibit here. And I want to talk a little bit about the process that I use to create my paintings. I use watercolor, and for this exhibit, I've added metallic acrylic paint also. And the process I usually work flat on a flat surface. I usually use heavy 300-pound watercolor paper. This particular piece that I'm standing next to is on a material called TerraSkin, which is polypropylene, which is basically plastic that's embedded with minerals. And I use this large piece as a kind of a relief point during my preparation for the paintings that you're going to see in my show, because I typically work pretty small, and as you will see, I do a lot of drawing on top of my paintings. So to begin, I use pigments right out of the tube. I use watercolors. I mix up 2 or 3 colors. I limit my palette. I pour them directly onto the paper or the surface. I then cover everything with plastic wrap. And I manipulate the plastic wrap with my fingers to make interesting textures, things like that. Then I wait for everything to dry completely, which takes a couple of days. I peel off the plastic, and what's left are various contours, different intensities of pigment. And those are the lines that I then trace with ink. And I use Sharpies, I use black ink, white ink, gold ink, whatever I think is appropriate. This piece, as I mentioned, is called Just Waiting, parentheses, Hope. And I did it because I found working on the tiny pieces or the smaller pieces that the muscles in my arm were cramping up, and I decided I needed to work larger to loosen up. So there are a couple of pieces in this show that are this size, and then there are 6 other pieces that are smaller. I get my inspiration from my walks in nature. I always have my iPhone with me, and if something interesting pops up, I will take a photograph. I never work directly from photographs to do my paintings. They're all kind of up in my head. And I just, call on all of those embedded images in my brain when I'm working. I added to this set of paintings, I added these metallic acrylics, which come in bottles, and I just, took the bottle and I squirted in what I thought were interesting movements throughout the painting so that your eye would follow the the movement. And then I took, drops of the metallic paint and dropped them all over this one. And as you can see, the yellow background, I use yellow and kind of an orangey red. And where the pigments were at different intensities, they form kind of markers, and then I trace those with the pen. And in some of the other work, you'll see that the work is a little finer. This is a little looser, a little bolder, which was part of my objective of working looser and kind of loosening up my my upper body, not being quite so tight. So, as I said, this is one of 8 paintings that's in 8 visions, and I'm very honored to be part of this exhibit at the Attleboro Arts Museum. Thank you for listening.